In fact, the idea of human presence and why it matters is one of the most important questions posed by new technologies and AI. It's another way of asking the questions we've been discussing just now. What is there about human presence that matters? I've thought about this in connection with teaching because, as you know, we did an experiment some years ago and filmed and put the justice class online.
Yeah.
And we did it as an experiment. We did it to show that higher education should be a public resource, not just a private privilege. We had no idea what would come of it. We certainly didn't imagine that tens of millions of people would want to watch it, which is what happened, to watch lectures about philosophy. But it did raise the question then about what am I doing here in Sanders Theater at Harvard? If people can watch online, is there a difference between attending a class or a discussion or a dialogue virtually, online, and in person? And now it may depend on the subject. Some of my colleagues have made attendance at their lectures optional if they have video recorded ones. They say, well, you can watch it and get the content. You can learn the information from the lecture. Sitting at home in your pajamas in bed, as well as sitting in the classroom. I don't see it that way, at least for my subject, because being here, sitting here and listening and engaging and wondering and puzzling and laughing and responding, I see that as something that is very difficult to replicate digitally. And yet, I'm interested in doing more and more experiments to see if we can create platforms for public discourse and dialogue, including global public discourse. I think we should explore that, in part because if we don't do it deliberately, then this entire technological apparatus and social media will simply be what we have today, which is a highly polarizing, mind-numbing, commercially driven form of communication that takes us further and further away from a healthy civic life. So I want to do experiments to create platforms for global discussion using the internet, using new technologies. But I don't think it will ever be possible fully to replace the human presence that learning at its best and dialogue at its best requires. But do you think that's just a traditional old-fashioned view, maybe?
I agree. I totally
you agree with that?
But but it's paradox because you mentioned in a classroom, in a theater.
Yeah.
You mentioned in one interview said in Beijing, a taxi driver told you he watched your video.
He told a colleague of mine.
Yeah. You know, maybe for the Beijing taxi driver, for that moment, even very long distance from here, but he feel so intimate with your point of view, maybe more than the student here. Maybe. Yeah.
Well, this was a thrilling, when I heard this story, that a Beijing taxi driver had been watching my lectures on justice. And he said his family was watching with him. This, for me, this single story was a reward, one of the greatest rewards I've experienced since we did this project. And so I think it's important to use technology to open access and to promote discussion and learning and mutual learning, and to try to go further to create back and forth dialogue, not just diffusing material, but enabling people to discuss across great distances. And yet, if that were all there was to human connection, then I think we would lose something. I think we would lose something. In fact, I would go further. I think part of what makes watching justice online compelling for that taxi driver in Beijing or anyone else is that what they are watching is not just me standing giving a lecture. Right. They are watching actual engagement in person. And that's part of what makes it compelling.
Yeah,
I think.
Right. You're quite right. Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah. Quite right.
Yeah. Even though it holds about 1,000 people, it feels intimate. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's banked, and people who are speaking can see one another. And it feels intimate. It feels like a seminar, almost.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it.
What kind of role the intimacy played in the thinking, in the debating? How important it is?
It's very important because it allows for dialogue. What the intimacy creates is a sense of community and gradually building trust, where people can disagree with one another, but still with civility and mutual respect, and learn together. That's really the idea, to learn together. I'll put a question to students, and it's a kind of journey together. But there's no guarantee that the student who raises her hand or his hand will offer the argument or the idea that I'm expecting. Sometimes the unexpected can lead in very interesting directions. Other times,
sometimes like chaos.
Well, yeah, sometimes chaos will emerge.
So which part is most difficult? It's a journey. Sometimes journey is boring. Sometimes journey is very exciting. Sometimes dangerous.
Yes. Well, the most dangerous, that's the easier part to answer. The most dangerous moments, but in some ways the most important moments, are the ones where the questions we're discussing come closest to the personal feelings and convictions of students. And those are the dangerous moments, but they can also be the most revealing and clarifying moments. What I try to do when I teach is to bring philosophy down to earth, to show students how they have a stake in what famous philosophers of the past have written. Philosophy does not only reside in the heavens, far beyond the world in which we live. It inhabits the city. It informs our everyday life.